session today. Special welcome, of course, to our guest adjudicators, Paul, Donald and Terry. I think there's been a lot of buzz and a lot of hype about this competition and how fortunate we are to have these people of this calibre here standing around that circle. And we really, really sincerely appreciate you coming across. And Alistair was just saying earlier on, you know, in awe of the job you did, and we know how detailed it is. So really, really appreciate you coming across and giving up your time. We always take this opportunity to learn, and when we have special guests here this Sunday, sort of feels like to come along and listen to some words of wisdom. And we're very fortunate today because we've got three people, not just one. And we've got some really interesting topics that I think we're going to enjoy. I hope Terry didn't mind, but I asked him to talk about leadership, because I really can't think of many better leaders than Terry Lee. I remember as a wee boy listening to that the first tape we put out, we talked about the other day.
Right.
Yeah, and just think, wow, that is some pipe band. And the first time we actually heard SFU live, had the honour of judging in the 1988 in Santa Rosa, and man, what you could tell that wasn't a band that just made it up in a studio. That was the real deal. And not only that, Terry moved on for the RNZPBA Championships, but the other real cool thing is teaching youth and developing people and humans, and I think that's marvellous. So Terry's going to talk to us about leadership, and then after that we're going to ask Paul and Donald to talk to us about the Adjudicator Development Group from the RNZPBA. Just thought it'd be really neat for us to know the direction that's going, and some really exciting stuff that's happening there. So Donald heads up the piping side of that, and Paul does the drumming side, so we get it right from the horses now. Very fortunate. So without any further ado, I'm assisting Terry by pushing a button, so if something goes wrong, it's not Terry's fault, it's my fault. So welcome, Terry.
Right. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone, for having me down to New Zealand. I had a cup of coffee in New Zealand once, at Christchurch 2001. We did a concert, we did a little tour involving Christchurch over to Sydney to do the Sydney Opera House. It was sort of a project, it was a goal, it was something we wanted to try to do. So great to be back. Thoroughly enjoyed yesterday, both from a competitive standards point of view and also an organizational point of view. I thought everything was absolutely brilliant from the ground, the facility, on up or on down. Fantastic, Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone, for all that. And Brian, thanks for the topic, pipe band leadership. It's something I certainly never really thought about, but it gave me the chance to kind of put a few ideas down of maybe how I did things and how I do things. And, sometimes we just sort of fly by the seat of our pants a little bit. I think one of the interesting things about my story is that I literally didn't want the job. I literally didn't have a pipe band. If you think about it, that's kind of weird. Okay? What happened was a band had gone defunct. And it was defunct or deed for a couple of years. And I got a phone call from a chap named Robert McNeil of bagpipe music writer fame, who said, "Terry, how do you fancy resurrecting this pipe band?" It was called City of Port Moody. And I was a young lad at this time, I was about 20, and I was sort of nicely off the dancing boards, and I was still on the solo piping boards, but I was in pipe bands, kind of, but I was out and I was taking a break from pipe bands. And I said, sure. But I literally had nothing to go on. And as it turned out, 0 of the players that were in this band came back. It was absolutely starting from scratch. And that's not to pat myself on the back, but it made it very interesting as to the fact of how I would proceed with this thing and what the steps would be and what kind of success I would have. I had no idea about success. I wasn't doing it for success. I thought, yeah, that sounds like fun, perhaps. And so we just, beat the bushes and, got a sort of a team together. I'm always about cornerstones in a pipe band, having the team. Gotta have it at all levels, in my view. It's not a one-person job. Never has been. If there's one strength I have, it's delegation. It's about using the assets you've got, right? Managing the team. That's it. That's what I think I've done pretty well over my time. More than anything, I think it's about once you get in, it's about grabbing the bit like a horse, you know what I mean? Absolute commitment, 100%, absolute focus. Not about winning, but about doing a good job. All in. That's kind of my feeling about how I did things. But I was fortunate, though, over the years to have lots of good mentors. I had been in different kind of bands. Not a lot of bands. I'm not about band hopping, I can tell you that in a big way. But I was in a kids band, and I was in a, where there was a senior sort of police type figure, right? A little bit harder figure. Then I was in a grade 1 band, City Victoria it was called, with Jamie Troy, and this was all about doing things the right way. Working hard and blowing hard reeds and playing challenging music and Little Cascade and these things. Well, this is super cool. You know what I mean? I had different types of background experiences that helped me sort of direct how I might want to go. And I took these bits of things and kind of formulated my own direction for my approach. So, leadership. It brought up, an array of things for me, and so I put a few thoughts together on this point. And Brian, thank you very much. We'll go to the next slide here, right? Now we have these esteemed gentlemen here, right, from the RSPBA, and I want to tell you that the 4 I's are a very big deal, and they'll talk about the 4 I's, but I have what I'm now affectionately calling the 6 P's. Okay, these are the 6 P's. There probably are more, but this is literally something that kind of spilled out of me fairly quickly, this idea. Probably could be a different letter other than P, by the way. P just came to me, right? So, varying in topics. There could be well more than this, but these 6 are practice, right? About being organized and having structure at a practice and all that, about how to direct people to practice, etc. Players is all about attracting and keeping players, right? I'm one of those kind of guys that I really treasure the guys that stay for 20 years, not 20 minutes or 2 weeks or 2 seasons. It's not about that. It's about honey rather than vinegar, attracting and keeping players. You need to have the horses, you need to have a foundation, you need to have a core, right? So it doesn't matter if it's a hockey team, a rugby team, or what. I'm sure on a rugby team you need the core, right? Looks like the All Blacks are doing fine, even though some of the big guns are retired and whatnot. I do follow the big events, and looks like the depth is just so strong that, all the best to New Zealand, Going to be great. The next generation. Planning, thinking ahead. In some cases, I like to encourage people to think way ahead, right? We get a little caught up in short-term thinking, I think, as leadership people and bands, very much about the next thing. And I like to suggest 5 to 10 years out is the way to think about things, right? Percussion, sometimes ignored. Back in my time, when I started, it was like, the drummers were in the, in one room, you're in the other room. I'm sure this is the case still worldwide. And you do your own thing. In the old days, you had a smoke break. Not anymore. But then you got together, you played a few tunes, and you went home. That was the deal, right? For me, it became way more integrated than that, and percussion became hugely important. We were talking, kind of alluding to the other night about hearing and developing and encouraging musical drumming, where you can hear the music coming through the drumming. And I really enjoyed that yesterday in Ensemble, hearing a lot of spirited and integrated performances that had produced lift. You know what I mean? They produced music. And it's really interesting when you kind of delve into the ensemble to think of it that way, not just about separate things. It's how is it together? How is the core leading drummer at writing music that makes sense, that encourages and develops and progresses music, So I'm being a little bit spoiled with Reed Maxwell. Character, but he has lots of character, he has lots of determination, but more than anything, super interested in the music, which together made us very potent. A lot of feedback, a lot of work. I remember when I made the call to Reed Maxwell, he's in Toronto, I'm in Vancouver. What's the equivalent here? That's 3,000-4,000 miles. That's at that time, 92, that was a big phone call, Would you consider taking this thing over? Whether he came to Vancouver or not was kind of beside the point for me. Anyway, He's agreed to do it. And it was like, really? Okay, you know, great. But what I'm getting to is, he came out for his first band weekend, and we absolutely spent the weekend together. Like, stayed at my place, and we just came up with musical ideas. And we came up with at least 2 medleys at the end of that weekend that really turned the page as to where we were musically and where we went to. Just was really enlightening and a lot of fun. And that's a memory for me with Rick Maxwell, of how interested he was. So I needed to be interested in him and the drumming process. And I always enjoyed that, you know, team, about having a team type of thing. Performance is the 5th one there, and that is kind of getting a band to peak for performance, right? There's been so many great bands in history that have done that. These 2 gentlemen have been involved with bands that have done that extremely well, and I've had the fortune of listening to and hearing those peak performances, right? When the SFU was going at its strongest, you could guarantee on a day that you would hear the strongest SFU. Whether that was good enough is another story, but it was well prepared. A well-oiled machine is kind of what peaking without going over the top of it, right? Is super important. And the last one is something I kind of coined, which is the package. The package is having it all, having all sections firing. That can be administratively, it can be percussion, it can be music, it can be tone, it can be product, it can be whatever. Kilts pressed the right way, Paul, you know what I mean? Everything. It's everything having the package and being ready and have to build forward with, right? I think I could add another P to this, and that would be persistence. I was a persistent little guy at one point, right? And, you know, our second trip to Scotland was 1985. Our first trip was 1983. We were 10th. I was quite happy. We had no idea where we would be, you know. 84, we took the year off. That's the only year we ever took off. 1984, retooling. I went, the band stayed home. And I remember hearing this, you know, the 78th that day, climbing the prize list, getting 3rd. Very stoked for them over at the bus, da-da-da. The whole thing kind of fueled me, though, for what we did do in 84 was this first album. We did a project, New Song Break, We Are Ready, French, the motto of the Fraser clan. And 84 was a project, so when it came to 85, our second trip, we were not well known, don't get me wrong, but there was a little anticipation within the band ranks because a lot of people would have heard that album at that time, which was thought to be quite good. Again, we were just finding our way, feeling our way, and making an album. But in 1985, we went, the couple of memories from there would be, you played an MSR in the morning, you had lunch, and so did the judges, and you played a medley in the afternoon. And we had drawn last on in the morning. And a distinct memory is us coming to the line, Glorious Day. Glorious Day, not much to do, band's kind of humming. Coming to the line, people are scattering from the arena. I believe Bog Hall and Bathgate was the last big band to play. I remember seeing people leaving the arena, we're coming last. And the band went on and played a very good MSR. We had 3 out of 4 firsts there. From nothing, like from nowhere. And that put us in good stead. To at the end of the day, got a bit hammered after lunch, got hammered in the medley a little bit. Someone, you know, a judge or two took care of business, we were there, and we were second. We ended up second. We were thrilled. We were thrilled. 85. Riding the bus home, guys, but some guys saying, we won that thing today. You know what I mean? Which only fueled us a little more. But persistence comes into it because the next 10 years brought second places, but it brought 5th places and 7th places and stuff. But we kept wanting to do it, right? But it took 10 full years to actually win it in 1995. So I think persistence could be added because there was no kind of stopping us from trying, right? We had a lot of try, as many here do and many bands here do. So that's my sort of persistent story, right? So Brian, we're going to the next one here, right? So to delve in a little bit deeper, we want to talk about practice, okay? And I always thought that practice was not the right word for it, that rehearsal was the word here. Practice is for home and practice is for solos. Band hall is rehearsal. Band hall is reps. There is no substitute for reps. And when I say reps, I would also be kind of encouraging percussion to be involved in a lot of those reps. There's no way that the pipes are going to be more rehearsed than the drums. I'm going to make sure that we're all integrated and we're all firing, right? Because I think we all get a little bit bored, a little bit over technical in our when we're separate, you know. I like to think that when I ran a practice, that the guys would never kind of know what was coming week on week. It was never boring, right? It was often fast-paced, but it was always different. There'd be a different focus kind of happening each night, right? I'd like to keep players guessing, right? And I want players to want to be at band practice for fear of missing something, okay? So, sometimes you hit a home run, sometimes in a baseball term, sometimes you don't. But you do something with energy, you do something different, you think outside the box, and you challenge people, right? But you also entertain, or you're not entertained, you know what I mean? Come to practice and get fired up, right? Work hard. That's the fun for me. I do see, maybe not so much here, but I see when I travel in the US in particular, there's always this dichotomy of players that are competition players within a band and non-competition players, or players that aren't ready. How do you develop youth? You know what I mean? How do you develop players to keep them involved, right? How do you